Hello there, and a very warm welcome to you. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us. Wherever you are in the world, and whatever time it may be for you, I'm truly glad you've chosen to settle in for our story tonight. I often wonder where you're all watching from. A quiet room in a bustling city, perhaps, or a country home under a blanket of stars. Feel free to let me know in the comments. It brings this vast world a little closer. For now, though, get comfortable. Take a slow, deep breath, and let's begin our journey. The awakening comes not with the sharp, jarring clang of a bell, nor the gentle prodding of a loved one. There is no rooster to announce the dawn, for the dawn itself is still a shy and distant promise, a rumor whispered on the far horizon. For the hunter, consciousness returns simply because it is time. Deep within the winding, intricate clockwork of his body, a silent, unseen pendulum has completed its nightly swing. An internal clock, set by decades of habit and the slow, reliable turning of the earth, has struck its unheard chime. He is awake. He finds himself in the pre-dawn darkness, a deep, velvety black that is just beginning to soften at the edges into a charcoal gray. His home for the night is a simple lean-to shelter, a temporary and humble negotiation with the wilderness. Two sturdy branches forked into the ground, a long pole laid across them, and a heavy oilcloth tarp angled down to the earth. It is less a structure and more a suggestion of one, a polite request for the wind and rain to please, if it isn't too much trouble, go around. The first sensation that greets his returning consciousness is the cold. It is a deep, biting, and intensely honest cold. It is the cold of the high woods just before the sun remembers it has a job to do. It has a clean, sharp, almost crystalline quality, and it snakes its way into the small gaps of his shelter, a curious and unwelcome visitor. It seeps through the air, finding the tip of his nose and the lobes of his ears, reminding him that the world outside his small pocket of warmth is a vast and indifferent place. This cold stands in stark, immediate contrast to the thin but surprisingly effective warmth of his bedroll. It is a masterpiece of practical design, stitched from thick, felted wool and lined with the cured, downy soft pelts of mountain hares. It is his one true luxury, his portable island of comfort in a sea of hardship. He lies nestled within it, a single warm bean in a very large, very cold pod. The boundary between the world of the bedroll and the world of the pre-dawn chill is a sharp and well-defined border, and he is in no particular hurry to cross it. As his senses slowly come online, the world begins to fill with sound. But it is a quiet, gentle symphony. There is the low, patient sigh of the wind as it moves through the high branches of the ancient pines that surround his camp. It is not a violent or angry wind. It is a tired, old wind, one that has been traveling all night and is now just looking for a place to rest. It whispers secrets to the trees, secrets of distant mountains and lonely valleys, and the trees whisper back with the soft rustle of a million needles. Further away, punctuating the stillness, comes the distant, lonely call of a single bird. It is a clear, piping note that cuts through the gray air, a single, brave soul announcing its existence to the sleeping world. It is not the cheerful chorus of a dawn chorus. It is the tentative, questioning call of the first one awake, asking, "Is anyone else out there?" and then silence again. The hunter's ears, trained by a lifetime of discerning the meaningful from the meaningless, pick up the subtler sounds of his immediate surroundings. There is the faint, almost imperceptible hiss of the dying embers from last night's fire, a sound like the last soft breath of a sleeping animal. There is the gentle creak of a leather strap on his pack as it settles. There is the soft, damp thump of a pine cone falling from a high branch and landing on the mossy ground. It is the sound of a world at peace, a world undisturbed. The air he breathes is a complex and layered perfume. The dominant note is the clean, sharp, almost medicinal scent of the pine trees, a fragrance that feels as though it could scour the weariness from your very bones. Beneath that is the rich, dark, life-affirming smell of damp earth and decaying leaves, the scent of the forest floor, a place of constant, quiet recycling. And woven through it all is the faint, comforting aroma of wood smoke, the ghost of last night's fire that has clung to his clothes and his hair, a subtle reminder of warmth and safety. And there is one more scent, fainter still, but sharp and unmistakable to his trained nose. It is the cold, metallic tang of his own tools lying nearby, the scent of whetstone, of honing oil, and of clean, well-kept steel. It is the smell of his trade, the scent of his purpose. Yet he does not move. He does not jolt awake or immediately begin the business of the day. He simply lies there for a few long, precious moments, perfectly still, his eyes open in the darkness. This is the first and perhaps the most important ritual of the day. He is listening, not with his ears, but with his entire being. He is listening to the world, taking its pulse, ensuring that nothing has changed in the night. He is feeling for any subtle shift in the wind, any new, unfamiliar sound, any scent that does not belong. It is a state of quiet, meditative awareness. It is not born of fear. A fearful man starts at every shadow, jumps at every snapped twig. The hunter's stillness is born of something else entirely, a deep and profound respect for his environment. He knows that the forest is not his enemy, but it is not his friend either. It is a powerful, neutral entity, and to survive within it, one must first listen to it, to understand its moods and its rhythms. This conscious stillness is a way of paying his respects, of acknowledging his place as a guest in a much older, much grander house. He lies there, a single still point in the vast sleeping landscape, and he is an observer, a quiet participant, a man who has learned that the greatest strength lies not in action, but in awareness. And in the cold, gray, pre-dawn silence, surrounded by the gentle sounds and smells of the ancient wood, he is, for a few fleeting moments, perfectly and completely at peace. The world remains in a state of quiet, gray suspension, but the hunter decides the time for stillness has passed. With a slow, deliberate movement that is a testament to both his age and his economy of motion, he pushes back the heavy flap of his bedroll. The cold air rushes in, a sharp, unwelcome shock against his skin, but he barely registers it. His mind is already focused on the day's first true task. Before the thought of breakfast has even formed, before the need for a warming fire has become a priority, comes the care of the tools. For the hunter, this is not a chore. It is a ritual, a sacred and unbreakable appointment that marks the true beginning of his day. From a long, specially designed scabbard on his pack, he draws his primary blade. This is not a grand, gleaming sword of a paladin, nor the elegant, jewel-hilted rapier of a nobleman. There are no magical runes carved into its fuller, no heroic legends attached to its name. It is a tool, and it looks like one. It is a practical, heavy-bladed short sword, or perhaps more accurately, a very large knife. The blade is about the length of his forearm, wide and thick at the hilt, tapering to a brutally effective point. The crossguard is a simple, unadorned bar of iron, and the grip is wrapped in worn, stained leather, perfectly molded to the shape of his hand. The blade itself is made of a dull, grayish metal, its surface marred with a web of fine nicks and deeper, more pronounced scratches. This is not a weapon of ceremony. This is a weapon of work. Along with the blade, he retrieves his other essential companion, the whetstone. It is a simple rectangular block of dark, fine-grained stone, worn smooth and slightly concave in the middle from decades of use. It lives in its own oilskin pouch, and when he takes it out, it feels cool and heavy in his palm, a familiar and reassuring weight. He finds a flat, stable rock near his shelter and sits, placing the whetstone before him. From a small, tightly corked vial, he lets a few drops of a thin, clear oil fall onto the stone's surface. The oil smells faintly of wintergreen and something else, something sharper and more metallic. He spreads the oil evenly across the stone with his thumb, and then he is ready to begin. He holds the knife's handle in his right hand, the fingertips of his left resting lightly on the flat of the blade. He lays the edge of the blade against the oiled stone at a precise, unchanging angle, an angle he learned as a boy and has never forgotten. And then he begins to move. The sound that follows is the true music of the hunter's morning. It is a slow, rhythmic, hypnotic sound. Shk! The blade slides smoothly away from him across the length of the stone. Then a soft sklick as he lifts it, turns it over. Shk! He draws it back towards him. Shk! Sklick! Shk! It is a sound that is both abrasive and soothing, the sound of creation through friction, of order being restored through careful, controlled erosion. This is his morning meditation. His breathing falls into sync with the rhythm of his hands. His mind grows quiet, his focus narrowing until the entire world consists only of the blade, the stone, and the feel of the steel kissing the abrasive surface. He is not just sharpening a tool, he is honing his own mind, scraping away the dullness of sleep and finding the sharp, clean edge of his awareness. He can feel the slight vibration travel from the blade through his fingertips and up into his arm. He watches with an artist's eye as the oil on the stone turns a faint, murky gray, colored by the microscopic particles of steel being stripped away from the blade's edge. He sees the fine scratches on the bevel of the edge begin to disappear, replaced by a new, uniform satin finish. The dull, worn edge is slowly being reborn, transformed back into a line of perfect, razor-sharp potential. This blade is more than just a tool. It is a historian, a silent partner that has been with him for most of his adult life. Each scar on its surface is a word, each nick a sentence in the long, ongoing story of his career. As his hands move in their steady, practiced rhythm, his mind drifts back, reading the stories etched into the metal. There is a small, crescent-shaped nick near the tip of the blade. He remembers the day that scar was born. It was not from the tooth or claw of some fearsome beast. It was from a moment of carelessness, when he used the tip of the blade to pry open a stubborn oyster he had found in a stream. The tip had slipped and struck a piece of quartz embedded in the oyster's shell. It was a foolish, lazy thing to do, a misuse of a fine tool, and the small, mocking scar has remained ever since, a permanent reminder of patience and using the right tool for the right job. Further down the blade, there is a long, ugly scratch that runs diagonally across its surface. That one came from the armored hide of a rock lizard in the Dragon's Tooth Mountains. He had underestimated the creature's speed, and its thrashing tail, covered in stony scoots, had raked across his blade as he parried a clumsy lunge. He had won the fight, but the scratch served as a constant lesson. Never, ever underestimate your opponent, no matter how clumsy or stupid it may appear. The dull, slightly discolored patch near the hilt is a testament to the corrosive properties of a Spriggan's blood, a lesson that cost him a new leather glove and a painful chemical burn on his hand. The series of fine, parallel scratches near the edge are from the time he had to frantically cut his way out of a net made of enchanted spider silk rope, a trap not set for him, but for a much larger and more valuable prize. These are not tales of glory. He does not recall them with a swaggering pride. They are a quiet ledger of past encounters, a catalogue of mistakes, miscalculations, and unexpected complications. They are a library of practical knowledge, and sharpening the blade is his way of rereading the most important chapters. The shk, shk continues, a steady, patient rhythm in the quiet pre-dawn air. The blade is now almost perfect, its edge a gleaming silver line of terrifying sharpness, capable of splitting a falling leaf or a monster's tendon with equal. He runs the pad of his thumb gently along the flat of the blade, just beside it, never across it, feeling for any burrs or imperfections. Satisfied, he wipes the blade clean with a soft piece of leather, the metal shining with a dim, dangerous light in the gray morning. The ritual is complete. The blade is ready. And in some small, profound way, so is he. He has faced the ghosts of his past, revisited the lessons they taught him, and prepared his most faithful companion for whatever the future might hold. And now, only now, can he begin to think about a fire and perhaps a warm drink for his old aching bones. With his blade restored to its former deadly glory and carefully returned to its scabbard, the hunter's attention finally turns to his own needs. His body, now fully awake, has begun to make its quiet but firm demands. The familiar hollow feeling in his stomach signals that it is time for the day's first intake of fuel. He has already built a small, efficient fire, its smokeless flames providing a welcome, if modest, soft circle of warmth. But he does not use it to cook. A hot breakfast is a luxury, an expenditure of time and resources that is not always wise. It creates smoke and smell that can travel for miles, announcing his presence to anyone or anything that might be paying attention. This morning, like most mornings, his meal will be a cold, practical, and deeply uninspiring affair. From a waxed canvas pouch in his pack, he takes out his provisions. The first is a piece of hardtack, a foodstuff so famously durable that some say the oldest goblin civilizations used it as a building material. It is a flat, dense, biscuit-like object, a simple mixture of flour, water, and salt, baked until it is as hard and unforgiving as a block of wood. It is the perfect food for a life on the road. It never spoils, it is immune to pests, and it is so utterly devoid of flavor that it can never become tiresome. You cannot grow tired of a taste that does not exist. The second item is a piece of dried meat. It is a dark, reddish-brown strip of venison, cured with salt and smoke until it has the texture of tough leather and the weight of a small stone. It is packed with protein and will provide slow-burning energy for hours to come. The final component of his meal is his canteen of water, which he had filled the previous day from a high, fast-running mountain stream. The water is cold and clean, with a crisp, mineral taste, a treasure more valuable than any gold. This is his breakfast. There is no fruit, no cheese, no warm porridge. There is no luxury here, no comfort, no delight. There is only fuel. He settles onto a smooth, moss-covered log near his small fire, not with his back to it for warmth, but facing away from it, his gaze directed out into the deep, quiet woods. This is an ingrained, unconscious habit, a fundamental principle of his trade. Never turn your back on the world. You never know what might be quietly observing you from the shadows. The act of eating is a slow, deliberate, almost meditative process. He takes the piece of hardtack and, with the practiced ease of a man who has done this 10,000 times, he breaks off a small corner. He does not simply pop it into his mouth. To do so would be to risk a cracked tooth. Instead, he places the piece in his mouth and lets it sit there, slowly softening, patiently waiting for it to become chewable. He understands that even digestion is a partnership, a negotiation between his body and the unyielding substance he is asking it to process. While the hardtack softens, he takes out his knife, not his newly sharpened short sword, but a smaller, simpler utility blade, and cuts a thin, almost translucent sliver from the strip of dried venison. He places this in his mouth and begins to chew. Each bite is chewed thoroughly, with a slow, grinding motion of his jaw. He is not savoring the flavor. He is mechanically breaking down the tough muscle fibers, making the work easier for his stomach. It is not about enjoyment, but about efficiency, about drawing every single ounce of available energy from this meager ration. As he chews, his eyes are constantly scanning the forest in front of him. His gaze moves in a slow, sweeping arc from left to right, then back again. He is not looking for danger, not in an anxious or fearful way. He is simply reading. He is reading the patterns of light and shadow, the sway of the branches in the wind, the flitting movement of a small bird. His professional habit of observation is so deeply ingrained that it does not stop, even when he is performing a simple act like eating. It is as natural to him as breathing. He notices a patch of moss that has been recently disturbed,
a sign that a deer has passed by in the night. He sees the way a particular vine hangs, a perfect natural tripwire. He notes the location of a cluster of bright red berries, and, with a mental cross-reference to his internal encyclopedia of flora, identifies them as poisonous. His mind is never truly at rest. It is always cataloging, analyzing, and assessing. This is what has kept him alive for so long. After a few minutes, the hardtack has softened enough to be chewed. He works on it slowly, the bland, starchy taste mixing with the smoky, salty flavor of the venison. He takes a sip of his cold, clean water, swishing it around his mouth before swallowing, a small act that both cleanses his palate and ensures he is not just gulping it down. He understands that hydration is a process, not an event. This deep respect for scarcity is evident in every movement he makes. Nothing is wasted. Absolutely nothing. When he breaks another piece from the hardtack, a few small crumbs fall onto his leather-clad thigh. He does not brush them away. Instead, he carefully gathers them with his forefinger, collecting the tiny, precious fragments of flour and salt and tips them into his mouth. He then brushes his thigh clean into a small empty pouch he keeps for this very purpose. At the end of the week, this pouch full of collected crumbs will be mixed with a little water to form a small, pasty, but calorie-rich emergency meal. It is a habit born of lean times, of long, hungry weeks when a handful of crumbs was the difference between walking another mile and collapsing on the trail.
When he has finished the last of his food, he takes a final, careful sip from his canteen. He does not drain it. He leaves a small amount sloshing at the bottom. He knows the terrain ahead, and he knows it will be another half-day's walk before he reaches the next reliable source of clean water. The last few drops in his canteen are not just water. They are a margin of safety, a buffer against the unforeseen. He screws the cap back on, his meal complete. He has taken in the bare minimum required to power his body for the coming hours. The meal has provided no pleasure, no comfort, only a quiet, grim satisfaction. It is the feeling of a skilled mechanic who has just topped off the fuel tank of a reliable, if aging, machine. Now, with the rituals of the blade and the belly complete, he is ready. The forest is waking up around him, and it is time for him to rejoin its slow, ancient, and unforgiving rhythm. Having fueled his body, the hunter now turns his attention to the more esoteric, but no less critical aspect of his preparations. He reaches into his pack and pulls out a long, narrow bundle of oiled leather, tied shut with a simple leather thong. He unrolls it carefully on the ground beside him, revealing not a map or a set of throwing knives, but something far more strange and subtle. This is his alchemist's pouch, his portable laboratory, his arsenal of scent and substance. What lies before him is not the glittering paraphernalia of a high magician. There are no crystal balls, no wands of polished yew, no ancient rune-covered tomes. This is the toolkit of a practical craftsman, a man who deals not in flashy incantations, but in a somber, pragmatic form of chemistry. The unrolled leather reveals a series of small, stitched pockets and loops, each holding its own specific item. There are a dozen or so small vials made of thick, dark glass, stoppered with corks sealed in wax.
Some contain viscous, dark liquids. Others hold fine, colored powders. There are small, tightly tied pouches made of deerskin, each bearing a small, cryptic symbol stitched into it, identifying its contents. And there are the tools: a small, smooth stone mortar and pestle, a set of tiny bronze measuring spoons, a delicate glass pipette, and a thin, silver stirring rod. This is where the true, unseen work of monster hunting lies, not in the final, frantic moments of a fight, but here, in the quiet, methodical preparation that precedes it. His first action is to take inventory. He picks up each vial, holding it up to the dim morning light, checking the levels of the liquids within. He gently squeezes each pouch, assessing its contents by feel. He is a quartermaster, checking his armory, ensuring he is prepared for the specific challenges of the day's contract. Today, his quarry is a gutterfang, a species of large, semi-aquatic reptile known for its venomous bite and its disturbingly keen sense of smell. This dictates his preparations. He opens a small deerskin pouch marked with the symbol of a jagged leaf. The air is immediately filled with a sharp, pungent, almost offensively bitter smell. This is powdered wolfsbane. He knows from experience that gutterfangs, while not werewolves, share a deep, instinctual aversion to the scent. It will not kill them, but it will confuse and agitate them, a small but significant advantage. He checks the pouch. It is nearly full. Good. Next, he takes up his mortar and pestle. From another pouch, he takes a piece of a dried, gnarred root, as black as charcoal. This is blood thistle root. He places it in the mortar and, with a slow, steady, circular motion, begins to grind. The sound is a soft, gritty whisper, a counterpoint to the earlier shk of the whetstone. As he grinds, a fine, reddish-brown powder begins to form. This powder, when mixed with a little water or saliva, creates a thick, powerful coagulant paste. In the event of a bite or a deep slash, applying this paste directly to a wound can slow the bleeding long enough for a more permanent solution to be found. It is a grim but necessary precaution. The hunter's face is a mask of intense concentration, his movements precise and economical. He is a scientist in his laboratory, a chemist performing a crucial synthesis. He is not thinking about the fight to come, but only about the properties of the substances in his hands. He carefully tips the freshly ground blood thistle powder into its designated vial, his brow furrowed in focus. He moves on, his hands working with a quiet, practiced confidence. He takes up the glass pipette and a vial containing a dark, oily liquid. This is the rendered fat of a swamp toad, a creature whose scent is utterly repulsive to most predators. He carefully measures out a few drops of this foul-smelling oil into another empty vial. Then, from a different pouch, he adds a pinch of crushed, dried elder leaves, whose own sharp, clean scent will mask the toad fat, creating a perfect, neutral-smelling lure. He will apply this mixture to the bait for his traps, a scent that will not alert the gutterfang to any danger, but will be intensely interesting to the grubs and lizards the creature preys upon. It is a subtle, multi-layered deception, a trap for the nose as much as for the body.
The air around him is now a complex tapestry of smells. There is the earthy, root-like smell of the blood thistle, the sharp, herbal bite of the wolfsbane, and the rich, swampy funk of the toad fat. To this, he adds another layer. He unstoppers a vial containing a clear, volatile liquid. The sharp, clean, almost painful scent of high-proof alcohol fills the air. This is not for drinking. This is for cleaning wounds, for sterilizing his knives after a messy kill, for creating a sterile field if he must perform some crude form of backwoods surgery on himself. It is the scent of antiseptic, of grim necessity. Each scent is a tool. Each powder, each liquid is a paragraph in the hunter's textbook of survival. They are his unseen allies, his silent weapons. They represent a different kind of knowledge, one that is not about brute strength, but about understanding the fundamental building blocks of the world, the properties of plants, the reactions of chemicals, the powerful, primal language of scent. This somber chemistry is the true heart of his craft. The final hunt is merely the final exam, a practical test of all the quiet, patient, and often smelly laboratory work that has come before. Having finished his preparations, he carefully cleans his mortar and pestle, wipes down his stirring rod, and repacks each item into its designated spot in the leather roll. He ties the thongs securely, his arsenal of strange and potent substances once again contained. The air around him slowly returns to the clean, simple scent of pine and damp earth, the evidence of his strange work fading like a morning mist. He has done all he can to prepare. He has sharpened his steel, filled his belly, and mixed his strange, potent medicines. He is as ready as he will ever be. Now, all that is left is to walk. With all the physical and chemical preparations complete, the hunter performs one last ritual before committing his feet to the path. This ritual requires no tools of steel or substances of the earth. It requires only his eyes, his memory, and the single most valuable object he possesses. He reaches into an inner, hidden pocket of his pack and carefully withdraws a flat, rectangular object wrapped in a protective layer of oilcloth. He unwraps it with a gentleness that borders on reverence, revealing a worn, much folded map. This is not the clean, brightly colored map of a royal cartographer, with its neat lines, charming illustrations of sea serpents, and confident, declarative place names. This map is a mess. It is made of a sheet of vellum so old and so frequently handled that it has become as soft and supple as a piece of fine chamois leather. It is covered in a chaotic web of lines, some drawn in a faded brownish ink, others in a smudged charcoal. The surface is stained with water spots, strange alchemical burns, and the ghostly imprints of long-dead insects. This is not a map for finding your way. It is a map for understanding what you will find when you get there. He unfolds it carefully, the vellum making a soft, sighing sound, and spreads it out upon a flat, mossy rock. This is his scholar's moment. He studies the map not for direction. He knows these lands as well as he knows the scars on his own hands, but for information. The official geography of the map is almost irrelevant. It is the marginalia, the layers of handwritten notes that crowd its edges and spill into its blank spaces that hold the real value. Here, in a cramped, spidery script, is a note from decades ago. Grave maw nest in the shadow fen. Avoid at all costs during the spring thaw. They are hungry. In another corner, a different hand has sketched a crude but detailed drawing of a particular type of rock formation, with the annotation, "Good shelter, clean water nearby, watched by harpies." Each note is a ghost, a whisper from the past, a piece of hard-won, often fatal knowledge passed down through the years. To read this map is to have a conversation with the dead. To add to its weight, he pulls out another item, a small, thick, leather-bound journal. Its pages are filled with his own cramped handwriting. This is his personal addendum to the great shared work of the map. He is part of a lineage, a quiet, informal brotherhood of men and women who have dedicated their lonely lives to this grim and vital craft. Sometimes a hunter will retire, and he will seek out a promising apprentice to whom he will pass on his map and his journals. More often, a hunter simply disappears, and a fellow professional following a lead on the same contract might find his abandoned camp and his precious, invaluable papers. This is how the knowledge is preserved, not in a grand library, but through a slow, sad, and often anonymous process of inheritance. He finds the section of the map that corresponds to his current location, the Whisperwood. He traces the thin, ink-drawn line of a river with his finger, his lips moving silently as he reads the faded notes. His own journal lies open beside the map, and he begins to cross-reference. The map, in a shaky hand he recognizes as belonging to an old, one-eyed hunter named Silas, notes, "Cave system here, good for shelter, but smells of troll." He flips through his own journal to a page from 2 years ago. His entry reads, "Silas was right about the troll smell. It is not a troll. It is a colony of dire bats. They are not aggressive unless provoked, but their guano is highly acidic. Do not store gear in the cave." He takes out a piece of charcoal and makes a small, neat annotation on the map next to Silas's note. "Bats, not troll. Corrosive." He is correcting, updating, and contributing to the collective memory. He is honoring Silas's observation while improving upon it with his own experience. This is the sacred duty of the mapkeeper. The narration now focuses on the weight of this knowledge. To carry this map is to carry a heavy and sorrowful burden. It is a chart of the world's dark corners, a catalogue of its pains and its predators. Every note, every warning is a story of a struggle. Every X marking a monster's lair is a tombstone for the victims it has claimed. To know that a beautiful sun-dappled meadow is also the hunting ground of the invisible phase cat is to forever lose the ability to see that meadow as simply beautiful. To know that the charming babbling brook is home to a species of voracious, flesh-eating algae is to never again hear its sound as simply charming. The map strips the world of its innocence. It transforms a landscape into a threat assessment matrix. This knowledge is not a comfort.
It is a responsibility. It is the reason he cannot settle down, the reason he cannot ignore the pleas of a small village terrified by a creature lurking in the nearby swamp. Because he knows. He knows what the creature is, what it is capable of, and that he is one of the few people in the world who knows how to stop it. The map is a chart of sorrows, and he is its weary, wandering navigator. He spends a long time with his maps and journals, his mind a quiet nexus of past and present, connecting the observations of long-dead hunters with his own lived experience. He is building a tactical picture, a mental model of the terrain and its inhabitants. He is preparing not just for his current hunt, but for all the hunts that might come after. Finally, he is done. He carefully folds the vellum map along its ancient creases, wraps it once more in its protective oilcloth, and places it back in its secret hidden pocket. He has communed with the ghosts of his profession, paid his respects to their knowledge, and shouldered their collective burden for another day. The sun is now higher in the sky, its light filtering down in golden shafts through the forest canopy. The world is fully awake, and so, at last, is he.
With his mind fortified by the grim knowledge of the map, the time for quiet contemplation is over. The hunter rises to his feet, his joints protesting with a familiar dull ache. The final phase of his morning ritual now begins, the act of erasure. He moves about his small campsite with a quiet, methodical efficiency, deconstructing his brief home and leaving no trace of his passage. This is more than just a practical concern to avoid being tracked. It is a matter of professional principle, a sign of respect for the wilderness he calls his office. He begins with the fire. It has already burned down to a small pile of soft gray ash and a few stubborn embers. He doesn't just kick dirt over it. He takes his small pot and fetches water from the nearby stream, pouring it carefully over the ashes. A small hiss of steam rises, carrying the last of the fire's warmth into the cold morning air. He stirs the resulting gray paste with a stick, ensuring that every last ember is cold and dead. Then he scatters the wet ashes, mixing them into the dark earth until the fire pit itself has vanished, becoming indistinguishable from the surrounding forest floor. Next, he dismantles his lean-to shelter. He unties the knots holding the oilcloth tarp, his fingers moving with a practiced, nimble grace. He folds the tarp into a tight, compact square, the creases as familiar to him as the lines on his own palm. He pulls the forked branches from the ground and lays them gently nearby, not wanting to leave the jarring, unnatural sight of two upright, sharpened sticks. His bedroll is shaken out vigorously to dislodge any clinging dirt or curious insects, and then rolled into a tight, dense cylinder, secured with two leather straps. Every item is returned to its specific, designated place within his pack. It is a three-dimensional puzzle he has solved 1,000 times, each piece fitting perfectly, the weight distributed for maximum comfort and balance on a long march. He is not just packing, he is restoring order. When he is finished, he performs a final, slow 360-degree survey of the campsite. His eyes scan the ground, looking for any sign of his presence, a dropped crumb, a footprint that is too deep, a piece of frayed cord.
He sees a small area where the moss has been scuffed by his boots, and he kneels down, roughing it up with his fingertips to make it look more natural. He is a ghost, erasing his own brief haunting of this small patch of woods. Satisfied, he shoulders his pack, the familiar heavy weight settling onto his back like an old familiar cloak. He stands for a moment, a silent gray figure in the dappled morning light, and then he turns. He steps out of the small, relatively open clearing where he made his camp and moves towards the deeper, older part of the woods. He is crossing a threshold. The transition is not marked by a gate or a signpost, but it is as real and as palpable as any man-made border. He is now entering the monster's domain. The atmosphere changes almost immediately. The quality of the light shifts. The cheerful golden shafts of morning sun are filtered out by a thicker, denser canopy of ancient interlocking branches. The light that reaches the forest floor now is dimmer, greener, almost aquatic. It is a heavy submarine light, and it seems to absorb sound and warmth, draping the world in a profound and watchful silence. The very sounds of the forest change. The cheerful, indiscriminate chatter of the smaller birds fades away. The rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth ceases. The woods become quieter, as if the entire forest is collectively holding its breath, aware that it is now host to a more significant and dangerous presence. The only sounds are the hunter's own soft footfalls and the faint, almost inaudible sigh of the wind in the highest, most distant branches. The air itself feels different. It feels heavier, more humid, and it carries new scents. The clean, sharp smell of pine gives way to the rich, loamy, almost fungal smell of deep, ancient rot. There is the scent of stagnant water, of moss that has not seen the sun in a century, and beneath it all, a faint, almost unnoticeable, but deeply unsettling scent of something old, something cold, something reptilian. This is not a place of evil, not in a moral sense. The hunter does not believe in evil, only in hunger and territory. This is simply a place that operates under its own set of ancient, alien rules, rules that were written long before men or their gods ever entered the world. And the hunter, as an intruder in this sovereign domain, must respect those rules or pay the ultimate price. His own movement changes in response to this new environment. He becomes a different creature. The steady, mile-eating pace of the traveler is gone, replaced by a slow, deliberate, almost liquid grace. His steps become softer, his feet finding the mossy patches and avoiding the dry, loud snapping twigs. He moves not like a man walking, but like water flowing, finding the path of least resistance. His presence is minimized. He hunches his shoulders slightly, making himself a smaller target. He controls his breathing, making it slow and shallow to avoid creating steamy clouds in the cold air. He is no longer a man passing through the woods. He is now a part of the woods, a new and temporary shadow that has joined the ancient permanent ones. He is not a conqueror storming a castle. He is not a hero marching to face a villain. He is a specialist, a professional, entering a dangerous and volatile workspace. He is like a master beekeeper approaching a hive of giant venomous hornets. He is an exterminator entering a cellar filled with toxic mold. His movements are infused with a deep, profound respect for the power and the danger of the place he is in, and the creature he has come to hunt. Every sense is alive, alert, and processing information. His eyes scan the ground for tracks, for broken branches, for the telltale slime trail of his quarry. His ears listen for the snap of a twig that is not made by the wind. His nose sifts the air, trying to determine the strength and direction of the creature's sense. He is a living, breathing diagnostic tool, and the forest is his patient. He moves deeper and deeper into the quiet, green, heavy silence, a solitary, focused figure on a collision course with a piece of the world that should have remained forgotten. He is an intruder, yes, but he is a respectful one, and he knows with a certainty that chills him more than the damp air that in this domain he is no longer the hunter. He is merely the other predator. Now, the true hunt begins. But it is not a hunt of frantic pursuit or a mad dash through the undergrowth. It is a slow, methodical, and intensely quiet process, more akin to reading a difficult and ancient text than to chasing an animal. The hunter is now a scholar, and the language he is reading is the language of the land itself. He is a tracker, but his art goes far beyond the simple following of obvious footprints. Any fool can follow a set of deep, clear tracks in the mud. The hunter's quarry, the gutter fang, is too cunning for that. It moves with a strange, gliding motion, its wide-webbed feet distributing its weight, leaving only the faintest of impressions on the soft forest floor. To track such a creature requires a different kind of seeing, a deeper level of perception. The narration becomes intensely focused on these tiny, almost invisible details. The camera of our mind zooms in, and the hunter's calm internal monologue explains the significance of what he sees. He stops, his gaze fixed not on the ground, but on a small, insignificant-looking sapling to his left. He points a single gloved finger at it. A twig, no thicker than his little finger, has been snapped. The break is fresh, the pale wood within still moist. The snap is high up, about level with his chest, and it points downwards. This is the first word in the day's story. A deer would have brushed past and broken it horizontally. A bear would have simply plowed through the whole sapling. This high, downward snap is the work of a heavy, dragging tail, the thick, muscular appendage of a large, low-slung reptile. The creature passed this way, and not long ago. He moves on, his steps slow and deliberate. His eyes are not scanning the horizon, but are focused on the ground about 10 feet in front of him. He is not looking for a path. He is looking for disturbances in the pattern. He kneels down beside a patch of deep green moss. To an untrained eye, it is just a patch of moss. To the hunter, it is a paragraph. He sees a small section where the delicate, feathery texture is slightly compressed, a faint, almost invisible sheen glistening on its surface. He touches it lightly with his fingertips. It feels slick, faintly oily. He brings his fingers to his nose. The scent is a faint reptilian musk with an undertone of stagnant pond water. The gutter fang rested here. The oily slime is a secretion from its underbelly. The fact that the slime is still wet and has not been absorbed by the moss tells him he is close, perhaps within the hour. The hunt is a test of patience, not of speed. The hunter might spend the next hour moving only 100 yards, his entire being concentrated on this slow, painstaking process of observation and deduction. He is in a state of meditative focus, his mind quiet and utterly present. He is not thinking about the fight to come, or the reward, or the long walk back. He is thinking only of the story the forest is telling him. He notices the silence. That is the next clue. In a healthy forest, there is a constant low-level hum of activity. The buzz of insects, the chirping of small birds, the rustle of squirrels in the canopy. Here, the silence is a heavy, unnatural blanket. The smaller creatures, the forest's natural alarm system, have either fled or are hiding in terrified stillness. This silence is a sign of a large predator's recent passage. The silence itself is a sound, a loud, clear warning that he is entering the heart of the beast's territory. He finds a single large scale snagged on the bark of a tree. It is about the size of his palm, a dull, greenish-black color, and as hard as stone. He examines it closely. He sees that its edges are slightly worn, its surface covered in fine scratches. This is an old scale, one that was likely shed weeks ago. It is not a clue to the creature's current location, but it is still valuable information. It confirms the size of the beast. It is a large one, an old one. This will not be an easy hunt. He continues his slow, deliberate advance, a ghost in a silent, watchful world. He is a detective collecting evidence, a linguist deciphering a forgotten dialect. A tuft of fur caught on a thorny bush tells him what the gutter fang last ate. A set of claw marks on a rotting log, deep and sharp, tells him about the state of the creature's weapons. The unnatural stillness of the water in a small pond tells him the creature has recently passed through it, its bulk disturbing the tiny insects that would normally be dancing on its surface. Each of these signs is a word, a piece of the puzzle. The snapped twig, the oily moss, the unnatural silence, the shed scale. Together, they form a sentence, and the sentence reads, "The old, hungry gutter fang is near, and it is moving towards the deep swamp." The hunter is not just following a trail. He is reading a narrative. He is communing with his environment, listening to its secrets. This slow, patient, and deeply intellectual process is the essence of his craft. The final confrontation with the monster will be a short, brutal, and chaotic affair. But the true hunt, the real art, is this: the quiet, lonely, and deeply focused act of reading the subtle, faded, and ever-changing language of the land. And in this language, the hunter
is a master poet. Having followed the subtle narrative of the forest to this point, the hunter knows he is close. The signs are now fresh, the creature's presence a palpable weight in the humid air. He has reached the edge of a great stagnant swamp, the gutterfang's preferred lair. But now, at the very climax of the chase, he does something that would seem utterly counterintuitive to a less experienced pursuer. He stops. This is a calculated pause, a deliberate and crucial step in his methodical process. To rush in now would be to announce his presence, to surrender the element of surprise he has worked so patiently to maintain. He scans the area and finds a high, defensible position, a gnarled, ancient cypress tree that stands on a small, dry hummock of land, its massive roots forming a natural fortress. Its high, spreading branches offer a perfect vantage point from which to observe the swamp below. With the silent, fluid grace of a creature born to the trees, he ascends the thick, moss-covered trunk, finding handholds and footholds in its rough, grooved bark. He settles himself on a wide, sturdy branch, his back pressed against the main trunk, his figure almost completely concealed by the thick, hanging fronds of Spanish moss. And here he simply waits. This is not a rest break. His body is not relaxing. If anything, it is more tense, more coiled than it was on the trail. This is a period of pure, focused observation, a moment of strategic stillness before the final act. From his perch, he has a commanding view of the murky, green and brown landscape of the swamp. He sees the still, black water, its surface dotted with lily pads and the occasional ominous bubble of rising swamp gas. He sees the twisted, half-submerged shapes of fallen trees and the dense, labyrinthine thickets of reeds. It is a place of shadows, secrets, and slow, bubbling decay. And somewhere down there, his quarry is at rest. The hunter now engages in the most subtle and demanding of his senses. He closes his eyes. He does this not to shut the world out, but to let it in more fully. By removing the distraction of sight, he can better focus on the other, more nuanced streams of information. His hearing, already preternaturally sharp, becomes his primary tool. He listens past the low hum of the insects and the gentle lapping of the water against the shore. He is listening for the one sound that does not belong. He is listening for the heavy, wet sigh of a large reptile's breath, the soft squelch of a heavy body shifting in the mud, the snap of a twig under a weight too great to be a swamp bird. He becomes a living microphone, a passive receptor for the swamp's quiet symphony, waiting to detect the one note that is out of key. He tests the wind. He does not need a wet finger. He can feel its faint, almost imperceptible caress on the exposed skin of his face. He notes its direction, its consistency. The wind is his ally, his messenger. It is the wind that will carry the creature's scent to him. And it is the wind that he must ensure does not carry his own scent to the creature. He attunes himself to the rhythm of his surroundings. He notes the regular pattern of the frogs croaking,
the cycle of the dragonfly's darting movements over the water. He becomes a part of the swamp's natural pulse, so that he can more easily recognize any arrhythmia, any sudden break in the pattern that would signal the creature's movement. The narration now explores his internal landscape during this long, patient wait. He is not bored. Boredom is a luxury for a mind that is not fully engaged. His mind is intensely active, but it is also profoundly calm. It is a state of hyper-awareness, a mental state that is both draining and highly focused. He is running through scenarios, playing out possibilities. If the creature emerges to his left, what is his best angle of approach? If it moves into the deep water, does he have a clear shot with his crossbow? If it senses him and flees to the right, is there open ground where he can intercept it? His mind is a quiet, efficient engine of tactical analysis, processing dozens of variables in a calm, orderly fashion. He feels the rough bark of the tree against his back, a solid, grounding presence. He feels the slow, steady rhythm of his own heartbeat. He is a predator, yes, but he is a patient one. He is like the heron that stands perfectly still in the shallows for an hour, waiting for the one perfect moment to strike. He is like the spider that sits motionless in the center of its web, feeling for the faintest vibration that will signal the arrival of its prey. This stillness is his greatest weapon. It is a testament to his discipline, his experience, and his deep, abiding respect for his adversary. He knows that the gutterfang is a creature of instinct and primal cunning, and that to defeat it, he must become more patient, more still, more a part of the landscape than the creature itself. The minutes stretch into an hour. The sun climbs higher, its light struggling to pierce the thick, humid air of the swamp. Nothing moves. The world seems to be locked in a state of suspended animation. But the hunter does not grow restless. He does not fidget. He simply waits. A silent, moss-draped statue in an ancient tree, his entire being focused on a single purpose: to see, to hear, to smell, before he is seen or heard or smelled. For in his line of work, the one who perceives first is the one who survives.
The scent arrives on a faint, almost imperceptible shift in the breeze. It is a foul, swampy odor, a rich, reptilian musk mixed with the smell of stagnant water and half-digested fish. It is the unmistakable signature of the gutterfang. The hunter's eyes snap open. He has his confirmation. From his perch in the ancient cypress, he saw the faint disturbance in the reeds across the small lagoon. And now the wind has brought him the creature's calling card. He knows its location, and more importantly, he knows its likely path. There is only one patch of relatively dry land that connects this part of the swamp to the next, a narrow causeway of firm earth between two deep pools of black water. The creature will almost certainly use this path. His period of patient observation is over. It is time for action. He descends from the tree with the same silent, fluid grace with which he climbed it. His feet making no sound as they touch the soft, damp ground. He does not draw his sword. He does not nock an arrow. The time for direct confrontation will come, but first he must set the stage. He must appeal to the creature's nature, using its own instincts and appetites against it. He will build a trap. He retrieves his pack, and from it he pulls the tools of this particular craft. This will not be a crude pitfall covered with flimsy branches, nor a simple snare that a creature of this size and strength would snap in an instant. The hunter's traps are complex, precise mechanisms born of decades of trial, error, and hard-won experience. They are as much an act of engineering as they are an act of hunting. His chosen trap for today is a combination of mechanics and chemistry. He begins with the anchor. He has brought with him a set of 4 iron stakes, their tips sharpened to a vicious point, their heads wrapped in thick cloth to muffle any sound. He moves to the narrow causeway of land, and with a small, heavy mallet, also cloth-wrapped, he begins to drive the first stake into the ground. He does not swing the mallet in wide, noisy arcs. He uses a series of short, controlled, percussive taps. Thump, thump, thump. The sound is dull, heavy, and quickly absorbed by the soft, damp earth. He drives the stake deep until only a few inches remain above the ground. He repeats this process with the other 3 stakes, creating a rough rectangle that covers the width of the path. This is the foundation, the brute force of the trap. Next comes the finesse. From a carefully wrapped spool, he takes out a length of fine, almost invisible wire, as thin as a hair, but incredibly strong. A rare and expensive material spun by the giant spiders of the southern jungles. He begins to string this wire between the stakes, creating a low, intricate web about 6 inches off the ground. He works with the delicate, precise movements of a weaver at a loom. His fingers, though calloused and scarred, are surprisingly nimble as they tie the complex, non-slip knots. He knows that the gutterfang, being a low-slung creature, will not see these wires. Its heavy, lumbering gait will ensure it plows directly into them. Now for the payload. From his pack, he removes a heavy, tightly bundled object. He unrolls it to reveal a large, heavy net. But this is no ordinary fishing net. Its thick, fibrous ropes are interwoven with fine, shimmering strands of silver. Gutterfangs, like many creatures of the swamp's murky depths, have a severe and painful aversion to silver. It does not burn them in a magical sense, but it creates a deep, irritating, neurological agony like 1,000 wasp stings at once. He connects the corners of this silver-laced net to the tripwires using a complex system of tension-release knots. The principle is simple. When the gutterfang walks into the tripwires, the tension on the knots will be released,
causing the heavy net to spring upwards and forwards, enveloping the creature in an agonizing, silver-laced embrace. The hunter's knowledge in action is on full display here. He knows the creature's height and gait, which determines the height of the tripwires. He knows its physical strength, which determines the thickness of the net's ropes and the depth of the iron stakes. And he knows its biological aversion to silver, which is the key to the trap's effectiveness. The net is not designed to hold the creature indefinitely. A beast of this size would eventually tear its way out. But it is designed to disorient it, to inflict a sudden, shocking burst of pain that will momentarily incapacitate it and make it vulnerable. But the hunter is not done. The trap needs one final, crucial element: the lure. He knows that the gutterfang is not actively hunting at this time of day. It is most likely returning to its lair to rest. He needs to give it a reason to pause on this specific stretch of path, to ensure it walks directly into the heart of his carefully laid web. He retrieves the small vial containing the mixture of rendered swamp toad fat and crushed elder leaves he prepared this morning. He unstoppers it, and a neutral, slightly greasy smell wafts out. Using a small, stiff brush, he carefully anoints a patch of moss in the very center of the rectangle of stakes. This scent is meaningless to the gutterfang, but it is the favorite food of the giant cave cricket, a creature that is, in turn, the gutterfang's favorite snack. The hunter is not luring the gutterfang, he is luring the gutterfang's dinner. It is a subtle, two-step deception, appealing to the creature's intellect, or lack thereof. He has created a sign that reads, "Easy, delicious meal here." Finally, his work is done. The trap is set, a silent, intricate, and deadly piece of craftsmanship, waiting patiently for its actor to step onto the stage. He meticulously erases his tracks, brushing away his footprints with a leafy branch, restoring the scene to a state of pristine, natural innocence. To the untrained eye, the narrow causeway looks exactly as it did before. But to the hunter, it is now a carefully calibrated instrument of capture. He retreats to a safe distance, concealing himself in a thicket of reeds, his crossbow in his hands, its heavy bolt already set and ready. His work as a craftsman, an engineer, and a chemist is over. Now, all that is left is to wait for the final act, for the inevitable and brutal work of the hunter to begin.
The trap is a silent, intricate promise woven into the fabric of the swamp. Every wire is taut, every knot is secure, and the subtle, deceitful scent of the lure hangs expectantly in the humid air. The hunter has done all he can. His role as a craftsman and engineer is complete. Now he must assume his most difficult and draining role, the watcher. He retreats from the causeway, his movements as silent and careful as when he was setting the trap. He does not go far. He needs to be close enough to act the instant the trap is sprung, but far enough away to remain undetected. He finds his spot in a dense thicket of tall, thick-stemmed reeds on the edge of the lagoon, about 50 yards from the causeway. The reeds are tall enough to conceal him completely, but their thin vertical lines create a natural screen through which he can observe the scene without being seen. He settles himself down, his back against a solid clump of earth, his crossbow resting across his lap. And now the long vigil begins. This is the art of waiting, the quiet, unglamorous, and deeply challenging heart of the hunt. It is a discipline that cannot be taught, only learned through years of grueling experience. A younger, less patient hunter might grow restless, might fidget, might doubt his preparations, and be tempted to check on the trap. The veteran hunter knows that waiting is not a passive act. It is an active, demanding, and utterly crucial part of the process. Time itself seems to slow down, to stretch and warp. The narration now focuses on the slow, almost imperceptible passage of the hours. The sun, which was high in the sky, begins its long, slow descent. The hunter watches its light shift, the sharp, green-tinged shadows of the swamp stretching and growing like dark, grasping fingers. A patch of sunlight that was warming a particular lily pad a moment ago now touches a different one, a slow, silent spotlight moving across the stage. The temperature begins to change. The oppressive, humid heat of midday gives way to the cooler, damper air of the late afternoon. A faint mist begins to rise from the surface of the black water, softening the edges of the world, draping the swamp in a thin, ethereal veil. The sounds of the swamp shift as well. The drowsy hum of the midday insects is replaced by the more energetic, insistent chirping of the evening chorus. The frogs begin their deep, resonant croaking, a call and response that echoes across the lagoon. The world is transitioning, moving from the business of the day to the business of the night. And through it all, nothing happens. The causeway remains empty, the trap remains unsprung, the hunter remains motionless. The true battle here is not a scaly, venomous beast. It is a battle against the self. It is a quiet, internal war waged against the hunter's own human frailties. It is a battle against impatience. Every instinct screams at him to do something, to move, to check his equipment, to reconsider his position. But his discipline, hard-won and ironclad, silences those voices. He knows that patience is not just a virtue, it is a tactical necessity. He trusts his knowledge, he trusts his craft, and he trusts his assessment of the creature's behavior. The gutterfang will come. He only has to be ready when it does. It is a battle against fatigue. His body, already weary from a long day, begins to protest. His muscles stiffen. The damp ground leaches the warmth from him. A dull ache begins to throb in his lower back. But he ignores it. He has trained his mind to disconnect from the complaints of his body, to treat them as meaningless background noise. He can endure discomfort. He cannot afford a lapse in concentration. And most of all, it is a battle against the mind's natural tendency to wander. The human brain abhors a vacuum. It wants to fill the long, silent hours with thoughts, with memories, with worries. The hunter must constantly, gently rein it in.
He cannot allow himself to think about the warm meal he will have when this is over. He cannot allow himself to drift back to the memory of a past failure or a past triumph. He must remain here, now, in this moment, his entire consciousness focused on the small, empty stage of the causeway. To stay this focused, he engages in a series of quiet mental exercises. He practices the shot in his mind over and over again. He visualizes himself raising the crossbow, finding his target in the sight, controlling his breath, squeezing the trigger. He visualizes the flight of the bolt, its trajectory, its point of impact. He runs through the next steps, drawing his sword, advancing on the ensnared and wounded creature, the final decisive strike. He plays the entire engagement out in his head 100 times, until it is a smooth, ingrained sequence, free of hesitation or doubt. He listens. He dissects the sounds of the swamp, identifying each croak, each chirp, each rustle. He builds a complete three-dimensional soundscape in his mind, so that the slightest deviation, the slightest new sound will register instantly. The hours crawl by. The sun dips below the horizon, and the world is plunged into a deep, purple twilight. The mists on the water grow thicker. The hunter does not light a torch. He does not need one. His eyes have adjusted, and he can see perfectly well in the gloom. He is a creature of the twilight now, as much as the beast he hunts. The long vigil has stripped him down to his essence. He is no longer a man. He is a function. He is an extension of his crossbow, a living, breathing part of the trap he has set. He is a vessel of pure, unwavering, and infinitely patient intent. And he will wait for as long as it takes. He will wait all night if he has to. He has nowhere else to be. This is his work. This is his world. And his world is the long, silent, and ever-watchful vigil.
The world has settled into the deep, inky blackness of true night. A sliver of moon hangs in the sky, its cold, pale light doing little to pierce the thick canopy and the heavy mists of the swamp. The hunter remains in his hiding place, a motionless statue of pure, unwavering focus. He has been waiting for what feels like a lifetime, but he feels no impatience. The vigil has become his reality. And then it happens. The arrival is not announced by a deafening roar or a ground-shaking tremor. It is far more subtle than that. A series of small, almost imperceptible changes in the fabric of the night. The first sign is a change in the sound. The constant, rhythmic chorus of the frogs, which has been the swamp's heartbeat for hours, abruptly stops. It is not a gradual fading away. It is a sudden, coordinated silence, as if a conductor has just waved his baton and brought the entire orchestra to a halt. This sudden, profound silence is more alarming than any sound could ever be. It is the sound of pure, instinctual fear rippling through the swamp's inhabitants. Something large, something dangerous is moving. The second sign comes on the wind. The faint, cool breeze shifts for a moment, and it carries a new scent, one that cuts through the familiar smells of damp earth and vegetation. It is a deeply unnatural smell, a foul and complex perfume of old, wet rot, like a pile of damp leaves left to molder for a century, mixed with a sharp, almost electric tang of ozone. It is the smell of a creature that does not belong, a creature whose very presence taints the air around it. The third and final sign is a sound, but it is one that you could easily miss if you were not listening for it. It is a heavy, wet, rhythmic thump squelch, thump squelch. It is the sound of heavy, flat feet on soft, wet ground. It is the tread of a large, heavy body moving with a deliberate, confident gait, a rhythm that is just slightly out of sync with the natural, chaotic pulse of the forest. The Gutterfang has arrived. The camera of our narration does not swing to show the magnificent, terrifying beast in all its glory. We do not see the glistening, scaly hide, the rows of needle-sharp teeth, or the cold, reptilian eyes. Instead, we remain with the hunter, focusing on the small, controlled, and intensely human details of his reaction. His body does not jolt. His heart does not begin to pound. Years of discipline have trained him to suppress the primal fight or flight response. Instead, a deep, cold calm settles over him. His left hand, which has been resting on the stock of his crossbow, tightens its grip. His fingers find the familiar, worn grooves in the wood. His right hand moves with a slow, deliberate grace to the trigger mechanism. His index finger rests lightly, almost lovingly, on the cold, smooth metal of the trigger. It does not tremble. His breathing, which has been slow and shallow throughout his vigil, becomes even more controlled. He takes a long, slow breath in through his nose, and then lets it out in a silent, almost imperceptible stream through his mouth. He is controlling the last variable he has power over, himself. He is calming his body, slowing his heart rate, ensuring that when the moment comes, his actions will be born of pure, cold logic, not of adrenaline and panic. His eyes, now wide and fully adjusted to the darkness, are fixed on the narrow causeway, the stage he so carefully set hours ago. He can see the faint, silvery lines of his tripwires, barely visible in the moonlight. He can see the patch of moss he anointed with the lure. He is no longer waiting for the creature to appear. He is now simply waiting for it to step into the light. The heavy, squelching footsteps grow closer. A large, dark shape detaches itself from the deeper shadows of the swamp and begins to move onto the causeway. It is low to the ground, its massive head swinging slowly from side to side as it sniffs the air. It smells the lure. It pauses, its head raised, sniffing the air with a loud, wet snorts. It takes another hesitant step forward, its small, piggy eyes trying to locate the source of the interesting smell. It takes one more step, and then the swift conclusion. There is a faint twang as the creature's heavy foot snags the first tripwire. For a split second, nothing happens. Then, With a sound like a giant canvas sail ripping in a gale, the tension release knots give way. The heavy silver-laced net, which had been lying in wait, springs upwards and forwards with astonishing speed. There is a deep, guttural hiss of surprise and confusion from the creature, quickly followed by a high-pitched, agonized shriek as the silver threads make contact with its sensitive hide. The sound of the heavy net falling over the creature is a wet, heavy thwump, followed immediately by a brief, violent, and desperate struggle. The reeds and bushes around the causeway thrash violently as the creature thrashes and rolls, trying to free itself from the agonizing, clinging embrace of the net. The sounds are a chaotic, ugly mixture of enraged hisses, pained shrieks, and the heavy, tearing sound of the beast's claws ripping at the thick ropes. The hunter does not move. He does not cheer. He does not feel a rush of victory. He simply raises his crossbow, finds the thrashing silver-wrapped shape in his sights, waits for a brief moment of relative stillness, and squeezes the trigger. The thunk of the crossbow is surprisingly quiet in the vastness of the swamp. It is followed an instant later by a wet, percussive thwack as the heavy iron-tipped bolt finds its mark. The violent thrashing stops. There is one last, long, shuddering exhalation, a sound like the air being let out of a giant leathery balloon, and then silence. The silence that returns is deeper and more profound than the silence that came before. The brief, violent storm of the encounter is over. The work is done. The hunter remains motionless for a long time, his crossbow still raised, listening to the new absolute quiet. The frogs cautiously begin to croak again, their rhythm slowly returning. The night has absorbed the brief, bloody intrusion and has returned to its ancient, eternal business. And the hunter, the quiet, patient catalyst of it all, finally allows himself to take a long, slow, deep breath. For a long time after the final shuddering breath of the gutter fang has faded into the night, the hunter remains perfectly still. He is listening, not for any remaining threat, but for the swamp to return to its natural rhythm, to re-establish its equilibrium. He is allowing the violent echoes of his work to dissipate. Only when the frogs have resumed their full-throated chorus and the night feels settled once more, does he finally rise from his hiding place and begin his slow, deliberate approach to the causeway. He moves not with the swagger of a triumphant victor, but with the quiet, weary gait of a man who has just finished a long and difficult day's work. The moonlight, filtered through the mists, casts a pale, ghostly light on the scene. The gutter fang lies motionless, a great, dark, lumpy shape ensnared in the silvery threads of the net. The heavy crossbow bolt protrudes from its thick neck just behind the armored ridge of its skull. A clean, swift, and mercifully efficient kill. The hunter stands over the fallen creature, and his expression is not one of exultation or pride. It is a quiet, somber respect, the kind a logger might feel for a great ancient tree he has just felled, or a fisherman might feel for a massive, ancient fish he has just pulled from the depths. There is a sense of melancholy in the air, a quiet acknowledgement of the brutal necessity of his trade. This magnificent, ancient creature, which has ruled this swamp for perhaps a century, has had its long, savage life ended by a small, clever man with a piece of sharpened steel and a deep understanding of its nature. There is a profound sadness in that, a sadness that is an inseparable part of his profession. But the work is not yet over. Now begins the grim harvest, the necessary but deeply unpleasant task of collecting the spoils. This is not about taking trophies. It is about fulfilling the terms of his contract and replenishing his own vital supplies. He unslings his pack and once again lays out his tools, but this time he selects a different set. A collection of small, specialized knives with curved, wicked-looking blades, a set of iron tongs, and several thick glass specimen jars. This is the work of a butcher, a field biologist, not a glorious hero. His first task is to extract the venom. The gutter fang is named for the two long, curved fangs in its upper jaw, which are hollow and connected to large, potent venom glands. This venom is a highly sought-after alchemical reagent, prized for its use in both potent poisons and powerful antivenoms. The hunter works with a cool, detached precision. Using the iron kongs, he carefully pries open the creature's massive jaws, revealing the rows of sharp, backward curving teeth. He locates the two venom fangs, each as long as his finger. With a small, incredibly sharp scalpel, he makes a neat, precise incision at the base of the creature's head, exposing the soft, pulsating venom gland. It is a pale, grayish sac about the size of a hen's egg. He holds a wide-mouthed glass jar beneath one of the fangs, and with the handle of his knife, he carefully presses on the gland. A thick, yellowish, oily liquid, the consistency of honey, drips slowly from the tip of the hollow fang and into the jar. He repeats the process on the other side, his movements economical and sure, his face a mask of neutral concentration. He does not think about the fact that a single drop of this substance on his skin would cause a painful, necrotizing lesion. He simply performs the task, his mind focused only on the mechanics of the extraction. Next, his contract requires him to retrieve the creature's musk gland, a small walnut-sized organ located near the base of its tail. The musk produced by this gland is used by high-end perfumers to create exotic, long-lasting scents for the wealthy elite. The hunter finds this particular fact deeply ironic, that the foul, reptilian stench of this swamp creature will eventually be dabbed onto the wrists of a duchess in a far-off civilized city. The extraction is a smelly, messy business, and he performs it with a grim efficiency, placing the small, pungent gland into another sealed jar. Finally, he must take a proof of the kill for the town elder who issued the contract. He could take the creature's head, but that would be a heavy, unwieldy, and unnecessarily gruesome trophy. Instead, he uses a small, heavy-bladed saw to remove one of the creature's large, five-fingered claws. The claw is a fearsome thing, with black, curved talons as long and sharp as daggers. It is a clear and unmistakable identifier of the species. He wraps the severed claw in a piece of oilcloth and stows it in his pack. His contracted work is complete. The narration now emphasizes that he takes nothing more. He does not take its hide, though it is thick and valuable. He does not take its teeth to make a grisly necklace. He does not cut off his head to mount on a wall. There is no glory in this for him. He takes only what is required by his contract and what is needed for his craft.
This is not a hunt for sport or for fame. It is a sad, necessary transaction with the forces of nature. He is a predator, but a regulated one. He has been paid to remove a specific, dangerous element from the local ecosystem, and he has done so with the minimum necessary force and with no wasted effort. He has taken his toll, and he will now leave the rest. The carcass of the gutterfang will not go to waste. It will be reclaimed by the swamp. The carrion birds, the giant slugs, the flesh-eating algae, the countless insects and bacteria, they will all come to feast. The creature's body will be broken down and reabsorbed, its nutrients recycled back into the great, bubbling, life-affirming rot of the swamp. In a few weeks, only a few scattered, bleached bones will remain as evidence that the gutterfang was ever here at all. The hunter, his grim harvest complete, carefully cleans his tools in the swamp water, wiping them down with an alcohol-soaked rag. He retrieves his crossbow bolt from the creature's neck, cleans it, and returns it to his quiver. He carefully dismantles his trap, coiling the precious silver-laced net and pulling the iron stakes from the ground. He leaves the causeway as he found it, erasing the signs of his brief, violent intrusion. He is a ghost once more, leaving only the dead to mark his passage. His shoulders slumped with a weariness that is more than just physical, he turns his back on the fallen creature and begins the long, lonely walk out of the swamp and back towards the distant, flickering lights of civilization.
The journey out of the swamp is a slow, quiet retreat from a world of primordial darkness back into a world of familiar shadows. The hunter moves with the same deliberate pace, but the tension in his shoulders has eased, replaced by a deep, bone-aching weariness. He is no longer an active participant in the forest's drama. He is just a man, tired and smelling faintly of swamp water and death, walking home. He does not go far. He returns to the small, secluded clearing where he made his camp that morning, a place that now feels as safe and welcoming as a king's own hall. The moon is higher now, casting a clean silver light through the canopy, and the stars are brilliant, cold points of light in the vast black sky. He unslings his heavy pack, letting it drop to the ground with a soft, final thud. The physical hunt is over, but there is one last, crucial ritual to perform before he can grant himself the luxury of rest. This is the ritual of cleansing. He builds another small, efficient fire, its cheerful, crackling flames a welcome contrast to the grim silence of the swamp. Under the warm, flickering light of the fire and the cool, distant light of the stars, he begins the meticulous process of cleaning his tools. He lays them all out on a clean piece of oilcloth: his short sword, the smaller utility knife, the specialized blades he used for the harvest, the iron tongs, the small saw, and the head of his crossbow bolt. Each tool is stained with the residue of the day's grim work, the blood, the venom, the various biological fluids of the gutterfang. He takes a clean rag and the vial of high-proof alcohol, and he begins to wipe down each tool, one by one. This act of cleaning is more than just a matter of hygiene or maintenance. It is a deeply symbolic act. It is a ritual of separation. As he wipes away the physical traces of the encounter, he is also cleansing his mind, drawing a thick, firm line between the violence of the hunt and his own quiet, personal existence. He is washing the metaphorical blood from his hands. This is how he stays sane. This is how he prevents the darkness of his work from seeping into the core of his being. He scrubs at a stubborn patch of dried venom on his scalpel, his movements focused and intense. He is not just cleaning the tool, he is banishing the memory of the creature's pained final hiss. He polishes his short sword until the metal gleams in the firelight, erasing the ghostly image of it sinking into the creature's flesh. Each wipe of the cloth, each drop of the cleansing alcohol is a small act of self-preservation, a way of compartmentalizing the brutal reality of what he does. He cannot afford to carry the weight of every life he takes. He must clean the slate, not out of a lack of respect for the creature, but out of a deep and abiding respect for his own fragile sanity. When the tools are perfectly clean, shining and sterile, he performs one final act of maintenance. He once again takes out his whetstone and his honing oil. He sharpens each blade again, restoring the perfect razor-sharp edge that the encounter may have dulled. The familiar meditative returns, a quiet, rhythmic sound that fills the night. It is the sound of order being restored, of chaos being smoothed away, of the world being put back into its proper, well-maintained state. The blade that took a life is now just a piece of sharpened steel again, neutral and waiting. Finally, with all his tools cleaned, sharpened, and safely stowed away, the hunter allows himself to sit. He settles by his small fire, pulling his bedroll around his shoulders for warmth. He does not celebrate. He does not feel a sense of triumph. He simply sits and stares into the dancing flames, a quiet, solitary figure in the vast, sleeping wilderness. This is his moment of reflection. The narration touches on the profound, almost overwhelming loneliness of his profession. He is a man who walks between worlds, but belongs to neither. He is too wild for the towns, too human for the forest. He is the one who must walk in the dark places, who must face the things that other people only whisper about in frightened tones. He carries the knowledge of what truly lurks just beyond the firelight, and this knowledge is a heavy, isolating burden. He thinks about the Gutterfang. He does not think of it as a monster, but as a creature that was simply living according to its nature. It was old, it was powerful, and it was a threat to the nearby human settlement. Its removal was a necessary act, but he takes no joy in it. He feels only a quiet, weary sense of resignation. This is his role in the great, brutal, and often sad tapestry of the world. He is the shepherd who must from time to time cull the wolf. He is the gardener who must pull the dangerous, invasive weed. He is the doctor who must perform the painful but necessary surgery. His work is essential, but it will never be celebrated. It will only ever be feared and understood. He looks up from the fire at the cold, uncaring stars. He feels a sense of kinship with them. They too are distant, isolated, and ancient, silent witnesses to the endless cycle of life and death playing out below. He is a small, insignificant part of that cycle, a brief, flickering spark of consciousness in an immense and indifferent universe. And in that thought, he finds not despair. The fire has burned down to a bed of soft, glowing coals, painting the hunter's weary face in shifting shades of orange and red. The forest around him is deep in its nightly slumber, a profound and peaceful silence broken only by the occasional distant hoot of an owl. His body aches for the oblivion of sleep, for the release from the long day's burdens. But there is one final chore to complete, a quiet and solitary task that is as much a part of his ritual as sharpening his blade or cleaning his tools. He reaches into his pack and retrieves the small, thick, leather-bound journal and his simple writing kit, a small, tightly stoppered pot of black ink and a sharpened goose quill pen. He settles himself closer to the warm embers, the flickering light just enough to see by. He uncorks the ink pot, dips the tip of the quill, and poises it over a fresh blank page. This is the final act of the day, the lonely ledger. He begins to write. His hand, though calloused and scarred from a lifetime of wielding weapons and hauling gear, moves across the page with a surprising neatness and precision. The script is small, practical, and devoid of any flourish. It is the hand of a man who values clarity over style, a man for whom words are tools, not ornaments. The entry begins with the date and the location, recorded with the dispassionate accuracy of a ship's captain logging his position. 3rd day of the fading moon, year of the black owl, the whisper wood, eastern edge of the gutter swamp. The next line identifies the subject of the day's work. Target: one adult male gutterfang, advanced age, evidenced by scale wear and multiple old scars. There is no dramatic description of the beast, no talk of its monstrous size or terrifying appearance. It is reduced to a simple biological classification, a specimen to be catalogued. He then records the outcome of the engagement, his words clinical and direct. Target neutralized via crossbow bolt to the cervical spine, following incapacitation by a silver-laced spring net. Lure of toad fat and elder leaf proved effective. He is not recounting a heroic battle. He is filing a field report. The language is that of a professional documenting a procedure, noting the efficacy of a particular technique for future reference. The next section of the entry details the grim harvest, fulfilling the requirements of his contract. Venom glands, musk gland, and one primary claw harvested as per the terms of the contract with the Elder of Willow's Bend. Bounty to be collected, 20 silver pieces. He pauses for a moment, thinking. Then he adds a final, crucial set of observations, the kind of hard-won knowledge that makes his journal so valuable. Notes for future reference. The creature displayed a marked hesitation to cross open water, preferring the established land path. Its sense of smell is acute, but it seems to prioritize the scent of prey over potential threats. The silver net caused immediate and extreme distress, suggesting a higher than average neurosensitivity. A faster acting venom on the bolt might be advisable for future encounters of this size, to minimize the post-mortem struggle. This is the core of the entry. It is a debriefing with his most trusted colleague, himself. He is analyzing his own performance, identifying weaknesses, and refining his methods. He is ensuring that the lessons learned from this hunt will not be forgotten, that the death of this creature will at the very least make him a more efficient and effective hunter in the future. This simple, quiet act of writing frames his entire day not as a grand adventure, but as a job. It strips away all the romance and mythology that surrounds his profession. He is not a knight on a noble quest. He is not a hero saving the world from evil. He is a skilled tradesman, a specialist contractor who has just completed a difficult and dangerous task. This journal is his ledger, his invoice, his after-action report. It is the quiet, lonely, and profoundly unglamorous paperwork that follows a day at the office. The business of hunting monsters, he knows, is mostly business. It is about contracts and clauses, about supply and demand, about managing risk and maximizing efficiency. The thrill of the fight is a fleeting, dangerous illusion. The true substance of his life is here, in these quiet moments of preparation, analysis, and documentation. When he has finished writing, he does not immediately close the book. He leaves it open for a few moments, allowing the ink to dry completely in the warm embers from the coals. He reads over his entry one last time, checking for clarity and accuracy. He is a meticulous record keeper, for he knows that a forgotten detail or a poorly worded observation could be fatal on a future hunt. Satisfied, he carefully closes the journal, its leather cover feeling as familiar and comforting as a friend's hand. He wraps it, along with his writing kit, in the oilcloth and places it back in its protected pocket. The final chore is complete. The day has been officially chronicled, its events categorized, its lessons recorded. The messy, chaotic, and brutal reality of the hunt has been transformed into a neat, orderly, and factual entry in a lonely ledger. And with this final act of imposing order upon the chaos of his life, the hunter is finally, truly ready for rest. The last entry in the ledger is complete. The ink dry, the book safely stowed away. The final coal in the fire pit has pulsed its last, faint, orange goodbye and has surrendered to the darkness. The hunter's day, with all its rituals of preparation, its patient stalking, its brief, violent climax, and its quiet, somber aftermath, is finally, truly done. There is nothing left to do but to submit to the immense, crushing weight of his own exhaustion. He unrolls his bedroll, the familiar scent of wool and worn leather a comforting presence in the cool night air. He slips out of his heavy boots, but keeps the rest of his clothes on. A lifetime of caution has taught him that you never know when you might need to move quickly in the night. He slides into the bedroll, pulling the soft, fur-lined flap up to his chin. The simple act of lying down is a moment of profound, almost painful relief. Every muscle in his body, from the screaming protest in his lower back to the dull, throbbing ache in his hands, seems to sigh in unison. Exhaustion is a heavy, weighted blanket, and it drapes itself over him, pinning him to the earth, promising the sweet, welcome oblivion he has so thoroughly earned. He closes his eyes, and the world of sight dissolves, replaced by the intimate, close-up world of sound and feeling. He feels the lumpy, uneven ground beneath him, a familiar and almost comforting sensation. He feels the slow, steady rhythm of his own breathing. He hears the gentle, whispering sigh of the wind in the pines, the distant, mournful call of an owl, and the soft, rhythmic chirping of the night crickets that have now taken over the forest soundscape. This is the lullaby of the wilderness, and it is a tune he knows by heart. But his sleep is never truly deep. It is not the profound, bottomless slumber of a city dweller, safe behind locked doors and thick walls. The hunter's sleep is a different state of being entirely. It is a watchful sleep. As he surrenders to exhaustion, a small, stubborn, and highly trained part of his mind remains on duty. It is a vigilant sentinel, a watchman on the tower wall of his consciousness. It remains alert, always listening, always processing the sounds of the night. While the rest of his mind and body sink into a state of rest, this small, bright flame of awareness continues its endless vigil. It is this part of his mind that can distinguish between the natural, harmless snap of a twig under the weight of settling snow and the unnatural, deliberate snap of a twig under the foot of a predator. It is this part of a mind that can differentiate the gentle rustle of the wind from the stealthy rustle of something large trying to move quietly through the undergrowth. It is this part of a mind that will jolt him from the deepest state of rest into full, heart-pounding alertness in a fraction of a second if it detects a threat. His day is over, but his vigil never truly ends. It is the fundamental, unchangeable reality of his life. He is a man who has chosen to live on the borderlands, on the lonely, dangerous fringes of the world, and that choice comes with a price. The price is that he can never fully rest. He can never completely let his guard down. He must, always, even in sleep, keep one ear open to the whispers of the wild. This is not a curse, not to him. It is simply a fact of his existence, a condition of his employment. He has long since accepted it. The peace he finds is not the peace of total surrender, but the peace of perfect, unwavering vigilance. He has done everything in his power to be safe, and now he trusts this small, ever-watchful part of his mind to see him through the night. The narration concludes by reflecting on this endless, quiet cycle. His life is a series of these days, each one a self-contained story of preparation, action, and reflection. Tomorrow he will wake to the cold, and he will begin the rituals all over again. He will walk to the town of Willow's Bend, collect his bounty, replenish his supplies, and accept a new contract. And he will set out once more, a solitary, gray figure walking into the wild, to face whatever new sorrow the world has conjured up in its dark, forgotten corners. It is a life of quiet vigilance and grim duty, a lonely and often thankless existence, but it is his life, and in its own strange, quiet way, it is of purpose. He is the man who stands on the wall, who watches the dark, so that others can sleep soundly in their beds, blissfully unaware of the things that he knows. He is the shepherd, the gardener, the doctor. He is the hunter. And as he finally drifts off, his breath deepening into the slow, steady rhythm of a watchful sleep, the world of his story fades away. The screen fades to black. All that remains for you, the listener, safe in your own quiet space, is the gentle, crackling sound of a distant, imaginary fire, and the soft, peaceful, and infinitely soothing chirping of the night crickets, an invitation to finally, truly let go. It is an invitation to do what the hunter never can, to surrender completely, and to find the deep, restorative, and unwatched sleep that he has, in his own way, earned for you tonight.